I'm currently split screen Wednesday, and I don't want to make it such that I can just see the thing because I can only see half of the Johnny's screen.
Okay, right? Okay.
I think I can do something about that.
What about this?
Thank you, Wednesday. Aha, perfect. That works.
Just kidding.
Thank you so much.
Um, oh, does this need to be done? It will need to be, but it was filmed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Amy, can you mute yourself?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's my testing sound.
Hey. Yeah, we're good to go.
We read?
Yep.
Except we're missing humans.
Open that part?
Aside from the missing humans part. Yep. We're missing red-headed humans.
Nico.
What happened to red-headed humans? Well, I lost enough hair that I started shaving my head. And I don't know if I grew it in, how much of it would be white at this point.
I really like that song.
Jesus, Jesus.
Yeah.
I thought it was particularly appropriate with him being able to walk on water and somebody's mind being a raging sea.
Slightly over.
We now have redheaded. No, we just need brown-headed with little sparkles.
Is that my wife or yours?
Mine's the one with the sparkles in her hair. Your wife is directly behind me.
Yeah, I thought my wife was maybe the brown haired one with little sparkles. Like it can be,
I can see that. Just thinking through the setup of this.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if next week, if we had longer cords, could we put the camera in that corner back there, and then I could rotate the chair a little bit, and then the camera would become part of the people as I'm looking around.
Yeah.
Instead of,
Yeah.
it just takes longer cords.
But the other thing is, you could pick your spot. If you like that spot, you could have that spot. You could be in the corner if you want.
Oh, in the Wesley spot. I like this spot because I can see everybody,
It seems like a nice spot.
but I'd rotate it some. And if that were down at like head height, it'd just be look like I'm looking at all the people. And now I'm looking at you, YouTube land, and
Yeah.
uh just breaking down that wall.
Yeah. That's right.
And the limitation is exactly for a lot of things.
What kind of cord is that?
USB-A to USB-A.
Oh, you've got to be able to get that plenty long.
But the other thing is, I think it would be nice to have. At present, this is my plan.
At present, what?
This is my plan.
Yeah.
And I think it would be nice to have laptop and video switcher and everything over there too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Then I leave it in your hands.
Well, the camera would go there, but also
But also perhaps more things. Which is nice because there's space over there.
that requires. I think just two exceptionally. Yes, two exceptionally long HDMI cords.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They come quite long.
Mhm.
Like that's how we have the two TVs
Oh yeah,
connected to one another in the other house.
yeah. It's
You're doing great.
No way. I could
one
possibly
to go all the way around, and then one to go all the way.
Yeah, it's just when they're that long, they can be a little pricey because when they're that long, you want them shielded.
We have one that's probably this one.
Oh, guys. Oh. I did the math and I'm like, wait, Anya's missing, but we have a solve for that.
It's cheap.
And consequently, I'm going to start, but I'm going to figure out where this can go. Tristan, this isn't too far from me. Oh, yep. And she's closer to normal size. Okay. Guys, we are still in John 6. It is still one coherent story, though it's going to seem like a totally different story. And so we're going to look at the surrounding context, just kind of pull it all together. And then we will be to be continued again because it's like crowd day 2. And that's going to be pretty spectacular. So let us start with our passage. Baby girl, will you please read our passage?
So Jesus, perceiving that they were intending to come, I want to start over.
Well, this works great as long as I physically hold it in.
So Jesus, perceiving that they were intending to come and take him by force to make him king, withdrew again to the mountain by himself alone. Now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, and after getting into a boat, they started to cross the sea to Capernaum. It had already become dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea began to be stirred up because a strong wind was blowing. Then, when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near to the boat, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." So they were willing to receive him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going.
When I started studying this passage this week, I zeroed in on this verses 16 and 17 in terms of how do I explain this to folks. And now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, and after getting into a boat, they started to cross the sea to Capernaum. It had already become dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. I'm thinking, why in the world are the disciples taking off? Like, yeah, Jesus is up in the mountains. We're just going to bail now. What? This is very odd. And so I had to expand it to the other gospel accounts. And so we are going to be looking at all of the gospel accounts of it, which is all of them but Luke. And so, baby girl, so much more reading.
Immediately, he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of them to the other side while he sent the crowds away. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray, and when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the wind. For the wind was contrary, and in the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter said to him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him, and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind stopped, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's Son."
And then Mark's telling of it is a little quicker and to the point.
Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them farewell, he left for the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea, and he intended to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed that it was a ghost, and cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke with them and said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished. For they had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their heart was hardened.
Whoa. Golly, there's a lot there. Let's have a quick review, because I want to set this in the context of the feeding of the 5,000 and the day that's going to happen when they get on the other side. And remember that it all started with this, that Jesus found that his brother, his buddy, had been beheaded just senselessly. And as soon as he heard that news, he left in a boat to a remote area to be alone. So his goal going across the sea was to be alone. But the crowds, they followed him there. And when he saw the crowds off in the distance, he had compassion on them. And he said, "Okay, we've got to feed these people." And so he used it as an opportunity to tend to his sheep and to raise up other shepherds. And the logistics of it were incredibly complex. We did the math on this a couple weeks ago. We're talking 2.5 metric tons of food being distributed by 12 disciples who don't have any history in event planning. And to put that in context, Red Rocks Amphitheater holds fewer people than were at this particular gathering. But we have a God who starts with the impossible. It's like, great, bring it. And along comes this little kid who's got nothing in the way of anything that is going to help these people out. But he's like, Jesus, this is what I've got. I've got a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish, and you can have it. His meager offering. And Jesus blesses God for that food because he knows he's going to be able to use that to feed everybody who is there. And in fact, after feeding absolutely everybody, there are exactly 12 baskets of food left over. And we talked about these were the little baskets that you would put on your back. And so, boy, that math works out really conveniently to give every single one of the disciples a tangible physical thing that they can carry and look at to remind them of what they have seen, which is so important because he's on this 3-year mission to win the disciples because they need to share this message. This is how it's going to be laid out. And so the whole point was the feeding and involving the disciples in that feeding. And yes, now that the people have eaten, surely they get it. And that they're like, wow, you are the prophet. But they don't get it because they were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. So here is this God man. They're like, we want earthly man. You are a Messiah. We don't enjoy having Rome, having to deal with the Romans. And so we want to make you in charge of leading the revolution. And this thing, intending to come and take him by force, the come and take him by force, it's the Greek word from which we get the word apprehend, like you would a criminal. They were going to apprehend him. And it's like, what? How do you even do that? And the thing is that there are many revolutions that start with a reluctant leader, but the people lead the insurrection and they say, that's our leader, and now that person's hand is forced. And so Jesus sees they're intending to come and take him by force, and in John, it's just, nah, I'll pass. So he withdrew and he went to the mountains to be by himself. But it wasn't just I'm going to go to the mountains. See, what happened was he sent the crowds away. He's like, no, you've got to go. We're not participating in any riots. You guys got to go. But it wasn't just that, because he sent the crowds away, yes, but immediately, before he sent the crowds away, immediately, he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him. Both Matthew and Mark comment on this. So, here's the thing. There's this beautiful feeding of the 5,000. There's this beautiful message to the disciples. Look, here's a tangible takeaway of this miracle so that you will understand who I am. And then there's a turn in the crowd. The crowd's like, we want to take out Rome. We want you to be our king. And Jesus recognizes things have gone off the tracks. And he's, step one, get the disciples out of there. Immediately, disciples, you get on the boat, you go. Then, crowd, disperse. We are not going to have any of this. So this isn't, yeah, he just sort of quietly passed through their midst because it wasn't yet his time. I don't know if he was looking out for the disciples' physical safety or if it was their spiritual safety. Like, could they be influenced by people who are like, you are the Messiah, so now you're going to lead an earthly rebellion? He's like, we've accomplished everything we need to accomplish here. Disciples, you go get in the boat. Then, crowd, disperse. We're not having any of this. So he immediately deals with the entire situation. And remember, the reason why he is on this particular land at this particular time is because he is grieving his brothers being beheaded, and he wanted to go be by himself. Well, guess what? He just sent the disciples off, and then he sent the crowd off. What a wonderful time for him to go be alone with his daddy. And so that's what he did. He withdrew to the mountain by himself, and Matthew and Mark are more clear about what he did on that mountain. He prayed, Daddy, it hurts. I don't like this. Your will be done. I don't like this. They killed my brother. Meanwhile, the disciples, they've gotten the boat already and they're heading out to sea. And after getting into the boat, they headed toward Capernaum. It had already become dark and Jesus had not yet come to them. So now we have context for why they're just hopping into the boat and leaving Jesus. Like, those were marching orders. How's he going to get to the other side? Don't know. Jesus said go. We're going. They're being obedient. Unfortunately for these guys, this is a terrible night for sailing. Just like very bad night for sailing. They're in this fishing boat, and the sea began to be stirred up because a strong wind was blowing. They were battered by waves, and the wind was against them. They were straining at the oars at about the 4th watch of the night. So Roman watches worked out such that the 4th watch of the night was between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So the width of the Sea of Galilee where they're crossing is somewhere on the order of 7 miles. It's 3 in the morning, and they're still at the midway point. So I went looking for what sort of storms do we have on the Sea of Galilee? Like, is this normal? It was hilarious. I got to this post on Quora. Please can you share any examples, photos or videos of giant storms on Galilee? And the accepted answer, which was 11 years old, so what is that, 2015, was somebody saying there aren't storms on the Sea of Galilee. It doesn't happen. It's calm. It's not a sea. It's a lake. It's moderate climate. We don't have hurricanes or tornadoes or anything. It's how do I know? Because I've lived here for 20 years. There's just nothing. But also, Israel Today reports Bible level windstorm batters the Sea of Galilee, and here we've got pictures of what it looked like in Tiberias the day after. And it turns out that these are gale force winds. This happened in 2022 in May. And the nature of the geography is this. The Sea of Galilee is about 600 to 700 feet below sea level. So it's low, with the hills all around it. And so we here in Denver understand what temperature inversion does when the cold air comes over the mountains. It settles down on the city and pushes down on it. Exact same thing happens in that region when cold air comes over the mountainous area. It fills quickly, and all that hot air has to go somewhere super fast. In 2022, on an 8-mile wide lake, there was a Category 1 hurricane. Also in 1992, Tiberias was rocked by a Category 1 hurricane. So, turns out, if you're writing in 2015 and you're like, there are never any storms, and you were born after 1992, you sound really smart. But you just have to expand that time frame a little bit, and you find out there are Category 1 hurricanes that occur with some regularity at the Sea of Galilee. Now, Tracy, you were in a storm on a lake up in Minnesota where there were 3-foot waves. Was that somewhat scary? Why not? Because these guys, however, were in a small fishing boat, and they're dealing with 10-foot waves and 90-mile-an-hour winds while this is going on, which explains why a solid crew of people, some of whom were very experienced fishermen, had been able to get about 3 miles in 8 hours since they were sent off. Yeah. Okay, so back to them. How far had they gotten? Well, they got to the middle of the lake. So at this point, they're in the worst place that they could possibly be, no matter what they want to do. They've got to travel the same distance in almost any direction. It was a long distance from land. And then along comes Jesus. And they saw him walking out to the boat on the water in a Category 1 hurricane. And there's this interesting piece in here where it says, he came to them walking on the sea, and he intended to pass by them. And that's a very weird expression, right? Like, okay, so he saw him, he smiled, and then he just kept going. It turns out to be a very strange translation, because the erkamai means to come near or aside, to approach. So what he intended to do was to draw near to them while they're out in the middle of this lake. And there are technicalities about whether it's the genitive or the accusative tense with the use of this word. The fact is, the context makes it really clear. Jesus didn't see them off in the distance and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk to the other side of the lake now and just make sure they see me walking by. So, he went out to meet him and just scared him to pieces. They see Jesus coming, they're like, ah! And what's the thing he does? He calms them. He says, it's me. Don't be afraid. Immediately, in fact, he spoke to them, saying, take courage. It's I. Don't be afraid. And this don't be afraid. It's actually, it's me. Be of good cheer. Look at you lads, hale and hearty. Be of good cheer. Hilarious. And see, here's this thing we know about our Lord Jesus, is he is the good shepherd, and his sheep hear his voice, and his sheep know him. So, of course, the very first thing he does is just say, hey, be of good cheer, lads. I'm here. They know his voice. And guess what? They do know his voice. So they were willing to receive him into the boat. And he got in the boat with them. It was okay. They're like, oh, I hear your voice. We've got this moment that's captured in Matthew, this bit about Peter. Golly, so much here. So Peter gets a bad rap for, being of little faith and sinking and up. But all the disciples are in the boat. They're scared. Jesus is like, be of good cheer. And Peter's first thought is, Lord, I want to be out on the water with you. And Jesus says, yeah. So he's like, cool. And he hops over the side of the boat. So we're talking genuine faith. Here's the problem, though. He gets out of the boat and he's walking toward Jesus and then takes his eyes off Jesus and he looks at the wind. And the second he takes his eyes off Jesus, all this doubt. And he goes down. And Jesus, note, immediately, not, Peter, I'm going to let you dunk for a little bit so that you learn your lesson. With the boys in the boat, he's not like, okay, I'm going to let you sit and struggle with this. How could you have doubted that it was me? No, none of this. He's just like, be of good cheer, lads. Peter, let me get you. And I'm going to hold on to that thought for a moment because we'll revisit this here. And then they hear his voice, be of good cheer. They're willing to let him into the boat. And once they make that step, they're like, yeah, Lord, Jesus, I need you right now, here in this ugly mess. Cool, we're done. Totally done with the mess. Immediately, the boat was at the land. Thank you. Immediately, the boat was at the land. Matthew and Mark capture the fact that, the moment he got into the boat with them, the wind stopped. So we've got Category 1 hurricane. He gets into the boat. Clear. And at shore, 3 miles away. Well, that's one heck of a miracle for that guy. But let's deal with this last bit. They were utterly astonished. How could this possibly be? And the problem is, they're astonished, they're amazed, they're happy, they're at the shore. But the issue is that they had hardened hearts. They were astonished because they didn't know Jesus could walk on the water, because they hadn't gained any insight from the incident of the loaves. Like, he just worked this, he fed bigger than red rocks from this little offering. They're like, we didn't know you could do hard stuff. That's amazing. And it's this reminder. We look at the disciples as, wow, the faith that they had. Yeah, they had that faith because he walked with them for years until they had that faith. Their hardened hearts, like, we couldn't imagine that you'd be out on the ocean, that, like, we were scared. And then we're in Matthew 14 at this point. You want to know what happened in Matthew 8? When he got into the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being covered with waves. But Jesus himself was asleep. And they came to him, woke him, and said, "Save us, Lord, for we are perishing." He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. The men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" They had that in their memory banks. They had the feeding of the 5,000 the day before. They're peeing on themselves in the middle of the sea with Jesus coming to them because he can't do hard stuff. And it underscores the point of this 3-year mission that he's on. He's got to get these guys on board and solidified in their faith so that they can carry this message to all the people, because even though they have seen miracle after miracle after miracle, they're like, I don't know if Jesus is big enough for this next challenge. Thank goodness we know so much better, having seen all kinds of miracles. We know there is no trial that we could go through that would have consequences that we can't foresee a way out of. But a little encouragement here. They're starting to get it. It's starting. When he got into the boat, those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's son." He has so much patience that he is showing himself time and time and time and time again as the Son of God, and it's starting to finally sink in. And here's a fun aside, or maybe it's the point of the entire thing. We've seen this before. Psalm 107. Those who go down to the sea in ships, who do business on great waters, they have seen the works of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. For he spoke and raised up a stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. They rose up to the heavens, they went down to the depths. Their soul melted away in their misery. They reeled and staggered like drunken men, and they were at their wits' end. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distresses. He caused the storm to be still, so that the waves of the sea were hushed. Then they were glad because they were quiet. So he guided them to their desired haven. Immediately, by the way. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his loving kindness and for his wonders, for the sons of men. Let them extol him in the congregation of the people and praise him at the seat of the elders. And they will do this. Okay. Recap with a few observations. Jesus is grieved, and he goes off to be alone. But he has compassion on these people. And this little boy says, Lord, this is all I've got, but I bet you can use it. And he says, yep, I can use that. And he feeds all of these people, and he does it in a way that is tangible to his disciples, because he's going to need these men. This Passover is the last one before the Passover in the upper room. He's a year away from going to the cross. He's been with these guys, some of them for 2 years at this point. He needs them on board. The crowd turns. They want to snatch Jesus, make him head of the revolution, and he immediately deals with it. Immediately. Get the disciples to safety. Get these people off. And then he addresses his own need. Note that he did not enter into ministry and he's like, I want to be alone. Ah, yes, I'm never going to be alone ever. Poor me. He has compassion on the people. He feeds them. He gets his disciples to safety. He deals with an impending riot so he can go up on the mountain and grieve with his daddy. He takes care of himself. Well, here's an interesting part of the story. He saw them struggling on the sea. They're 3 miles out in a Cat 1 hurricane. He sees them. It gives us an idea of what his senses are like. And he's like, okay, now I'm needed. Not that he didn't like, hey, guys, just go out a little bit and then pretend like you're going and then come back and then you'll be nice and safe. It's like, go. Okay. So they're obediently in the middle of a Cat 1 hurricane. And when he sees that, okay, now is the time, he goes out. Took care of himself, now he's taking care of them. As soon as they need it. And they get scared. Oh, we're scared. Guess what? Immediately, he spoke to them, calmed them. Hey, guys, it's just me. Be of good cheer, lads. When Peter doubts for a moment, immediately Jesus stretched out his hand. He waited for nothing. He's there. Got himself taken care of. He's there. He's fully present. Stretched out his hand and grabbed him. And this line, there's sweetness in this. Because he says, you of little faith, why did you doubt? But this little faith, it's not a twisting. Jesus is the one who told Peter, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain. Peter had the faith to step out onto the ocean. You of little faith, this is a compliment. He had faith to step out there. Why did you doubt, buddy? You were close. And as soon as they don't need to be in that struggle, immediately the boat was at the shore. They don't need to learn anything else. Done. Immediately. And why did he do it? Because he needs these men. He put them out in the hurricane so that they could see his faithfulness. And see that it's going to be okay because I am God. There is a gem in here for parenting. Their job isn't to make sure that your kids avoid trials at all costs. It isn't to save them from fear and make them happy. Why did Jesus put them through all of this? So that they would know him. So that they would know him. It's a good job to have. Shall we worship?